It takes a strong woman and a voice without fear to speak up in the face of who we are this year. So if you see a strong woman, tell her she's strong, because the strong don't get to speak for very long. We love to sing the praises of our First Amendment rights. We love to feign encouragement to truly speak your mind. Tell you that your speech is free, go say what you like. But our speech isn't free. We pay for it in friends and they're dropping like flies, disappearing right before our eyes. And every day what Twitter calls free speech is being redefined, slowly shaped in Biden's image and the alt-right. Gutless rape apologists and mothers who are quick to say they want Trump out so bad that they would offer Joe their child for a night. I tell myself that all of those are bots so I can function in my off time. Fuck, I'm trying to raise a child. I don't have the time or means to find out where these people live and hold them to the fire till they swear that they can see the light. So you can keep the party, it is not where my allegiance lies. It's in defending every rape survivor scrutinized. It's in uplifting every voice they try to euthanize. Your leaders see you, honey, but they do not view with human eyes. Instead, they let us have our little space to bicker. Split up into factions where we're grouped by belief, and I bet you Twitter sits back and bets on which will eat itself quicker. Free speech is governed by an all-seeing eye and a silent listener who pulls the plug on anyone who dares to try and tell you that you're prisoners. Arbitrarily suspends a woman trying to defend herself from colonies of rape enablers flooding her DMs with trauma triggers. Then she's suspended. And they don't tell her why, but I think we understand. But let me get it straight for her assassin if he's listening, cause he's such a simple man. You can call a woman a whore or a bitch, or make light of her rape, or pretend like you know where she lives. Go dig up a picture of her parents or her kids and there's zero repercussions. Isn't that how it stands? But somehow she gets banned? Well, in case you didn't look into the people that you silence, you seem to target those of us who fight to stem the tides of bitter vitriol from those intent on mocking rape survivors and belittling domestic violence. Well, Twitter banned me now before I find that fucking Chad and drag him out his filthy basement by his eyelids. Say, if you could see me, motherfucker, I am smiling. Speech is not free, but it's a sliding scale based on how well you follow guidelines. How well you keep your mouth shut, how few waves you make at Epstein Island. Speech is not free, it's been hunted for a decade through the highlands. And even when it's sleeping, it hears echoes of the dogs and the rattle of its shackle and its chains. The dream always starts when it trips on a root, and it ends a millisecond shy of when the dog bites in. And it wakes up to find that another brilliant mind got silenced in the night speaking truth about Joe fucking Biden. I have never felt a gut punch that hits so physical from losing someone only in the medium provided. But if she hears this, I hope that she can feel like she owns this song even though I write it. You were gone in a flash, but you left enough gas for us to burn and fight another year, and we will fucking fight it. Do you hear me, Twitter? We will fucking fight it. It's called holding to your standards, motherfucker. You should try it. I hope tonight you're lying in the dark, wide awake, and the sound of you kneecapping free speech splits the quiet. Ironic that you call yourself support when what you do is disproportionately silencing survivors. So maybe drop support and call yourselves defilers. Call yourselves defenders of a bunch of corporate interests who suppressed our right to speak amid a global crisis. Then ask yourselves if you've been on the same side as the virus. Your kind have been a thorn in our side since the days of Osiris. And I knew you in some form then, back when I penned your lyrics on papyrus. Now here we are again, and by Twitter's scale of dangerous subversion, I would like to think I'm high risk. But ultimately Twitter gets to pick and choose the flavor of your global news and leave you in the litter of 100 different Biden bots with all the same worldviews, constantly barraging you with filth until you're clawing out your iris. So this might just be the last song before I'm silent. So if it's bon voyage, tell my son and my mom I was a kamikaze pilot. Something else to say, but words have let us all down. We are in the waste now. If we choose to lay down, let them bring our wage down. Nancy, won't you face down, pray? If you find resilience in your faith, it's on all of us to lead the way. It takes all of us to lift the weight. We were told it's normal and required that we suffocate. Wait, I will not be carried to my grave in perfect health and perfectly awake. The earth is not the sweetest of escapes, but the surface is a merciless and purpose-sicken place. Don't stay. Tell him that he doesn't have to stay. Hold his hand and let him slip away. There is nothing here that's worth the wait. Nothing good is waiting in the wings. Don't stay. Oh, don't stay. Fate demanded I be singer of a new ballad about the candidate you wanted like a finger in your fruit salad, but were made to choke down. And never mind he didn't have supporters on the ground. Never mind a website that gave volunteers the runaround, and a platform, a policy that followed Biden's lead and didn't make a fucking sound. And then he takes the crown. Now that's ascension into power by immaculate election, cause no one really wanted it and no one should have trusted it. But don't you try to question it, cause Joe is not a fan of questions, but Joe is a fan of pointing fingers right in people's faces. Or if they're not in public spaces, Joe will try to poke a finger everywhere I won't mention. Joe's soul is molded and beholden more to power than the list of fucking speakers at the DNC convention, who gave us all a show of keeping AOC at bay, just so everyone could say they tried to censor her dissension. But if you still believe the progressives we've elected give a shit if we're protected, there's a bridge I'd like to sell you in a parallel dimension. You know they're just tech savvier with media relations, propagandist Instagram and public obfuscation. Better suited to assure you that they're here to have a conversation. Better suited to assure you they aren't actively supporting your eviction and your slide into starvation. Better suited to assure you they can tweet about your needs and offer hope and motivation while you drift into the weeds, but they partnered with the moccasins and gators and the reeds. And they damn sure get a portion of our meat. So, love me or leave me or mislead me to decree. Honey, you won't want to hear it, so I'll try to say it sweet. The squad are not your buddies, they are simply more discreet. The GOP will kill you on your feet. Dems and fake progressives do it in your sleep. Anyone can recognize a nation's needs and put it in a tweet. But coming from a leader in a seat of power really shows they know they're obsolete. GOP will kill you on your feet. Dems and fake progressives do it in your sleep. The squad are not your buddies, they are simply more discreet. You won't want to hear it, so I'll try to say it sweet.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat, couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Right for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She is wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say?
Just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously, we're fucked. We are fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Ian?
Cheers and salutations. Smoke 'em if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
We're back. We're here. We did it. Excuse me. Twidget.
What?
I gotta fix Twidget. Hold on. There we go. I got it.
Okay.
Welcome everybody to another episode. INN News. We have
episode 78.
Video to show you.
Yes.
But that's gonna be our video. This pay attention, black people. You hear that, black people? Pay attention. JB's gonna tell you some stuff, so we're gonna get to that in a second. But we also have Running on Empty, which is an interesting little segment to get to about how we have no more money for Ukraine. That's gonna be fun.
Which leads to
yes, this one, which I'm sure everyone will be here for.
The biggest story this week, well, so far in the week.
I
would not have marked that on my bingo board, but
vote. You know that you have got to. Do you want to be a fighter? Now's your time.
I'm sorry, I do have that on the soundboard now, so we got that.
Oh, great. Well, how often going to play that, though?
I don't know. Maybe more.
But for this,
it's useful.
We normally don't do this. You guys know we normally don't do with the trending stuff, but in this case, and it does relate to policy, we deserve this.
Yeah, we like having a win. So
consider this our victory lap segment. We'll have fun with it, but we'll bring something serious, but we're gonna definitely have fun with this. And then
I also brought another thing that I'm sure none of you have ever heard of. It's spooky month, everybody. It's spooky month, so we figured we had to have a spooky story. So we have the Phantom Parrot. Very spooky. Very spooky. Ghost parrots. Who knew?
Are we planning to have like spooky stories like for this month, given that it's
Maybe. I mean, there's plenty of stuff to be afraid of.
Right.
So, I figured we should, have a little fear in our lives. It's probably good. But anyway,
Yeah. So guys, do the thing, like, share, subscribe. Feel free to give if you can. Obviously, if you can't, we know money is tight. We know the holidays are basically here. Let's keep it real. Like,
yeah.
the stores are starting to sell Christmas stuff right now. So, so if you want to give, great. If you cannot, great. Your presence is gift to us enough. But that being said, as we said, first segment with JB is a pre-record, so we did this last night with him.
Yeah, so we'll be in the chat, but we're gonna let this roll. But stay tuned afterwards for the other 3 stories.
Don't leave.
Don't leave. I'll know you left. I will know. I'll find you. I have a certain set of skills. All right. I will find you. Okay. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. No, you better not.
All right.
Ooh. Anyway,
all right. We'll see you guys in about an hour. So enjoy segment with JB,
which we'll be playing right now. Here you go. Look at that. Look at that. It's right there. Enjoy.
Who are these people?
What's up, everybody? Is another episode of Iron News with me, Reef, and my co-host Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. Care Bear, how are you?
Okay. I'm doing great because we have our good friend of the show, our man James Fauntleroy, otherwise known as JB from RBN. Pleasure to have you once again, JB.
It's good to be here. Good to see you guys. Thanks.
And you brought a gift of sorts. You wrote a sub. You wrote Funny enough, I have that vinyl at that Rick James vinyl. So.
I'm just waiting for Collin to own every vinyl. He's gonna have a whole wall of it here soon.
If I have a big enough house, then yes, I will.
Yeah.
But yeah, you wrote a Substack article, which we think is amazing. And as we were saying to you before we went live, I think more of us need to do that in terms of broadening our reach in terms of, not just visually, but also in written form. So we wanted to give you, I know I saw you posted it on Twitter, so I wanted to kind of bring you on to talk a little bit more about it. But actually, can you explain to us what brought you or what led you to write this article?
Nazis.
I mean, yeah.
So,
yeah.
The thing is that as a marginalized people, I think it's important that we peer through the weeds of corporate media and focus on what our government is doing and how it affects us materially. A lot of times we will look at the foreign policy of the United States and we'll think, oh, well, they're doing this for our benefit. When in reality, when you look at it from more of the squirrel's eye view, versus the bird's eye view, it becomes very apparent that they are not on your side when it comes to our material benefit. So I felt that this to be necessary to address, our community as Black people and say, look, things aren't what they seem.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that pushed me to this decision to write this article was, the applauding of a Waffen-SS soldier, a Nazi soldier in Canadian Parliament. And I did a stream on this last week on my channel talking about this and how these are the same people that want to rid us off the earth. And Black people need to realize that our government is too soft and lackadaisical when it comes to Nazis, and they've had a history of doing this.
Right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we've definitely talked about this on our show before. And yeah, so I definitely really appreciate you, I think, bringing this out to light, kind of just as a way for us in the Black community. Well, I would argue we've been new, others haven't. Like, in so many ways, you know, like, I think people who are non-Black are kind of brand new to this idea. But we've been, not necessarily with Nazis, but just white supremacy in general is something that we've dealt with in the West for centuries. So
And you
it's
ain't
not,
Black.
So it's like, so it is. I say for us, we are seasoned, I would say, in understanding and knowing the reality of white supremacy in the West, even if we may not necessarily are fully immersed in it. We know it. We innately feel it, you know, in terms of our society, yeah, in our culture. But I do want to read. It's short, but I do want to read your article, and then you can definitely comment. And I have a couple of other questions for you.
Well, looks like we got ourselves a reader.
So the title, you titled this, whoops.
I got it. Yeah,
Why?
Sorry.
Why Black people should pay attention to the proxy war in Ukraine. There's a sympathetic undercurrent for Nazis and fascism that should give Black people pause in Western nations. The time to wake up is now. So you continue. Black people should be paying key attention to what's happening in the developments in the proxy war the U.S. is waging against Russia by means of Ukraine right now. As many of us in independent media have been saying, this war of attrition that the U.S. is funding for the sole purpose of gaining access to Russian resources is revealing how nefarious the corporate government is and shows us how dire of a need we have to change the system from the ground up. Make no mistake, the U.S. government is funding Nazis, and they know it. Fascism is not new to us as a group in this nation. We have seen the generational damage it has done to us, as well as our indigenous siblings, in the form of genocide. These forces were always here since they landed on Plymouth Rock, but now they've been emboldened since their time of the Third Reich in Germany. Tensions are rising, and I fear a complacency from our brethren due to U.S. propaganda having such a massive chokehold on the minds of many Black folks here. The recent display of praise and adulation for an SS Nazi officer in Canada as of recent shows that we cannot and must not be lax in our vigilance in pushing for liberation and freedom. Governments like Canada, US, UK, India, Italy, France, and Germany have shown us that fascism is still alive and well and will place us back into the chattel state of our ancestors soon enough. So I actually want to stop here and want to ask you, like, in your opinion, why do you feel people are kind of more in tune to fascism now compared to when we've been making this charge for centuries and people didn't bat an eye? Like, what, like, it's almost kind of like, and we see in the independent media, like, we can't vote for Trump because he's fascist, you know, like, and it's like, well, Biden is fascist, Obama was fascist, like, every president that we've had in our history is fascist. So, and they've done nothing to kind of support us as Black people, but now you're concerned about it. So I'm just kind of, in your opinion, why you think there's such a huge revelation for people who are non-Black to kind of think about, oh, we need, this is something that we need to worry about or be concerned about.
We're canaries in the coal mine. We've always been. Every single time something horrible has happened, the prelude to those horrible things happening to the American people have been started with Black people.
Right.
With the exception of indigenous people. So you think about chattel slavery. Chattel slavery was used, on us in order to build up the country so that they could rake in the profits through forced and free labor. They are now pushing towards that, not just with us once again, but they're also trying to do it with white people. Think about the mass incarceration that was really geared towards us. The 13th Amendment did not end slavery for us completely. In fact, it made it still operational with the conviction or even just an accusation of a crime if you're put into prison and not even convicted. But they want you to be, to be able to be enslaved within the prison industrial complex so that you will continuously work for companies like McDonald's, Wendy's, American Airlines, and Victoria's Secret.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that part as well. And now it's not just Black people, but it's also about 60% of white people that are in prison now that are also now involved in chattel slavery.
Right.
You see how the police have systematically and systemically oppressed us since their inception into this country. And now you see how it's affecting poor white people on a systemic level. You see how we were persecuted against through various means of medical torture. You had the Tuskegee experiments, things like that. And so now you see what they're doing against
MK
white
Ultra,
people.
specifically.
Yeah, MK Ultra.
Yeah.
How they're doing against these things against white people as well now. And so now it's not just no longer Black people who are being discriminated against medically, for the ends of corporations and big pharma. So Black people have been the canaries in the coal mines for centuries, and we have been sounding alarm. And it's like I've said before.
Oh, you mean how Black people are going to get the COVID vaccine before everyone else? Isn't that a thing? I swear, I think that was a thing. I remember correctly.
I mean,
I'd be I don't know about that.
Well, as far as the jab is concerned, Black people who were disproportionately affected during the pandemic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so then that not only affected Black people, but it also affected a lot of poor white people too.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've always said was to a lot of people, and particularly a lot of the PMC white people, they'll say, oh my God, fascism is here, where for Black people, fascism is a Tuesday.
Right. It's always been, right. This has been a class issue for decades and decades and decades now. And if you're at the bottom of the totem pole, which all of us are now, so it's kind of you continue in this article along these lines of make no mistake that these politicians are tools of the corporate dictators that wish to keep us down as peoples and workers, right? But we aren't the only targets of the new wave of fascism on the rise. Jewish people, LGBTQ+, neurodivergent, hello, thank you, disabled people, and many poor whites are all set to be subject to further suppression and socioeconomic degradation by the corporate dictators. Fascism is the vehicle they will use to own us and have us under subjugation. They will push us to think that all we Black people need is Black capitalism and we will be okay. The late great chairman of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton, said the contrary. We say we're not going to fight capitalism with Black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. They will point to the whitewash history of Martin Luther King Jr. and tell us that we need not fight for the battle is won, which is a lie. If the battle was won, Dr. King would still be alive. I wanted to bring that chairman of the BPP himself, this guy, who we all remember a channel name that RBN once had, which I still appreciate, but we'll let Fred tell us.
What makes them mad about it is that they had black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best. We think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions with all of us people to get together and have an international proletarian revolution. Right on. Right on. And that's saying all power to the people. Right on. That's saying that no matter what color you are, there's only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back, because this is lower, this is upper, this is the oppressed, this is the oppressor, this is the exploited, this is the exploiter. And these people in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fighting amongst each other. And you've heard the testimony of pigs here, and you got pigs of all colors, you know that. You got pigs that are white, you got pigs that are black, you even got pigs that are black and white. Propagating the same type of madness that this buffoon Hanrahan would be propagating if he were here himself. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy, and that everybody else that's black and that wears a lot of hair on his head and hair on his face, they want to keep you thinking that he's your enemy. Why? Because if ever you would disregard him and overlook him just for a minute and throw away that question of racism and start into dealing with a little logic, then there would be no one else you could attack other than Hanrahan, other than Daley, and other than Tricky Dicky Nixon. If you make the right decision, then the oppressed people of the world get complete satisfaction. I know you return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
I mean, still right.
Yeah.
You know, more people need to go watch that again if they haven't already. You know, but
and he was assassinated at the age of 21. So that was
strange how that works. Anyway, Care Bear, anything?
Yeah. I got not what's to say.
I know, right?
I mean, JB, I think you're right. I think it's I'm just kind of annoyed of the fact that, like, as you said, we've been sending out this warning for centuries, and now and I just feel like with the age of Trump and MAGA, like the people, especially those if you're non-black and in the PMC class, you care more about fascism now. It's like, oh, we have to, but it's kind of like the false sense of, oh, we have to vote for minority Democrats because Trump is way is worse. Like even if they admit that Biden is bad, but oh, Trump is way worse, you know. But for us, it's kind of like
we know that that's not the power. The power isn't some elected official. It's like Fred Hampton was saying there. Yeah, they're gonna have you fight with Tricky Nixon and whatever. It's not just and it speaks to it's less a conspiracy than they make it out to be. It's not just the man keeping us down. It's corporate profit, as it always is. Whether that's in war or medicine or in whatever industry is there, it's going to continue to have their boot on our neck. That's the boot. You're not going to vote out the Rothschilds and Schwab and all those cats. That's not happening. You're going to have to figure something else out. Anyway, you know, corporate dictators, if you will.
Yep.
You know, so
that's what. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so these same corporate dictators are now clawing back all the concessions made during the Roosevelt administration, and more since now they have more sympathetic lapdogs in the seats of government. This battle is intensifying on a global scale since the recent anti-imperialist coups against France in Sahel nations like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Fascist corporate dictators are now seeing the global majority rise up and say a resounding no to their imperialistic and colonial rule.
What?
Well, shout out to France for getting the boot.
I know, right?
For now, but I'm like, even with that, like, what?
Yes, but
like,
what did we cover the other day? What are they having Kenya do
80?
right now? What are they having Kenya do? Have you heard this, JB? You might have missed this one. They're sending Kenyan police to Haiti.
Right.
Like in response. Yeah, I know, dude. It's the worst. Like the US is sending money and aid to Kenya so that they could be our police in Haiti. It's fantastic.
Right.
It's a great deal.
Right.
You know, people known to have like humanitarian problems.
But you know what? Now that you're saying this, Reef, like, I think JB was not necessarily, but I feel primarily writing for Black Americans.
Mm-hmm.
But really, this message is for every Black person globally.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and we've talked about this all the time, and I think especially what's happening in Africa, like the elites in Africa are basically sellouts in terms of, you know, they want to be kind of acquired by the West. They want to have, they essentially want the West's riches at the expense of their people who they're willing to have be poor.
Well, that's because we got a few bases right near their house, I imagine.
Right. Right. So, you know, so really it's just the idea of solidarity among ourselves that on a global scale that I don't think is often talked about enough. Like, and, you know, and it's just kind of reminding me of the idea of like, this is why, and I know you promote this a lot, JB, but I think this is why I think as Black people, we need to do better. I think be better in terms of these issues among each other, in terms of how we're going to promote these issues in a way that we're able to, especially for non-Black people, to be allies. Like, well, what are we demanding? And what are we asking our allies to assist us with? Because half the time we can't even articulate that our damn selves because we're fighting among ourselves. But then, like,
unity doesn't represent what you're against, it represents what you are for.
Someone said that.
But it's the idea of like, we're fighting among ourselves, I think, in terms of, you know, in America, but everywhere else, like in the global South, we're not having those conversations with our African cousins or like our Latino cousins who are of the diaspora as well. So, you know, so I think it's just the idea of like really thinking in terms of what does true solidarity mean for us in terms of the diaspora of, you know, this imperialistic mindset that many of us who are Black do have, that we need to fight against, because half the time it's not even just it's mostly among each other. I find that
wasn't that long ago. Speaking of that diaspora, Mexican Independence Day was not too long ago, a couple of weeks, I think. Big deal in that regard. I mean, that was literally them getting independence from colonialism, you know?
Right.
That's a big deal. But yeah.
In regard to what you were saying, Collin, regarding the diaspora actually coming together, there is subsets of divisions that happen within the diaspora that actually really need to be talked about, as well as we need to clear the air. There's divisions within the diaspora regarding gender, LGBTQ issues,
right,
disabilities, things like that. So there needs to be a coming together, because people need to realize, you know, the gay Black people in the diaspora are not your enemy, or the trans people who are in the diaspora are not your enemy. So why are we fighting against each other? The women and the men need not be divided among gender lines because of these gender wars that happen in the diaspora, especially in African American community, because ultimately that is just a tool of the oppressor to keep us divided so that we don't fight for our own liberation. So in reality, what's really going on is that we are becoming tools of the oppressor. And let me just say this, because there's a lot of Black men, especially, that are now starting to look at people like Donald Trump as their savior, when in reality, it's like you went from one false white savior to another.
Right.
Because you're going from Biden now to Trump and saying that, well, we like Trump because of these little arbitrary things that he has done that you think that are great for Black people, just because he, stood in solidarity with somebody like Lil Wayne. Like, who gives a shit? Because the thing is that somebody like
crazy. It's crazy how they be doing that.
Yeah, because the thing is that Donald Trump is in the same club as those people. Biden is just a lackey of the people in that club, and Donald Trump is a buddy of those people in that club. So it really doesn't matter. And just like what, our ancestors who were revolutionary has said, people like Chairman Fred Hampton said that we will not fight capitalism with Black capitalism because it does us no good whatsoever. Right. And so they're going to continue to use this and say, well, all we need is Black capitalism. And then they're going to say, well, look at what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did.
Look at my African-American over here.
Black and white and Jew and Gentile. Like, no. This is not what it's about. Ultimately, this has to deal with the class war that we actually have to fight and win, because they want to keep us divided so that they will continue to keep us at the bottom of the hierarchy. When in reality, we have to end and win this class war so that we are no longer have a social and socioeconomic hierarchy that keeps us down in the first place.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. I'm down for that. Anyway, you continue. This frightens them, I think, is where you stopped.
Yeah. In order to keep some semblance of control, they will try to squeeze their iron fists more on those of us within the borders of the imperial core. We must resist and tear the empire apart from the inside. Our awareness must be sharp in this respect. This is why I'm writing this article now, to make my people aware of the coming hammer to drop that the US government is going to attempt to strike us with.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Okay. These corporate dictators are now getting more bold and ready to make a totalitarian world order where we own nothing and they own everything, including us. We must awaken our senses of self-determination, sovereignty, freedom, and justice to fight and resist this pursuit of control. This is why independent media is so important, and I encourage you to support us in however ways you can. Our organizing via direct action and mutual aid will be a foundation, as well as political and media education literacy, to combat these forces that want to force us to work without keeping our dignity and liberty. Black people, we need to remember and study our rich history of resistance and revolutionary struggle for liberation. We must emulate our ancestors who taught us to fight against a capitalist system that put chains on our wrists and ankles. We will save ourselves and make our world better collectively if we do this. We will succeed. We must succeed.
What's that quote about if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah,
pretty much.
And being, an educator, that's something that I think we definitely lack. We lack the knowledge of our own history in terms of remembering the strategies that our ancestors laid out before us. And I think, and I've said this many times on the show, I think now we're trying to reinvent the wheel in terms of trying to create something new. And I'm kind of like, we don't necessarily have to do that. All what we really should be doing is kind of remixing the strategies that our ancestors left for us before. They worked then, and it's still a lot of the same shit that we're still going through now.
I find it important you spoke to what independent media is supposed to be doing, and you mentioned two very important things: direct action, mutual aid, right? Like I don't see voting in there, so that's nice. We know that's not going to help necessarily. we got to fix that whole system before then. But you know, like that to me is an important part of what RBN is doing, what we do here. You know, like pushing that, especially that education literacy. How many times have we? I think you literally have a listen to our ancestors video, correct, Collin?
Right. Right. But then even that, JB, I know you do readings on your channel too, in terms of having your audience learn. You know, I know you've read reading Shakur right now. You've read Michael Parenti before. You know, you're trying your best to engage, but give us. And it's one thing to be educated, but it's another thing to be educated in the means that is going to help us long term.
How about this guy? How about that guy? That guy we're doing. Someone gave me this, I think. I've not even cracked it open.
Well, it's 1,000 pages, so
hey, you know, like I got through Harry Potter once. I think I can manage. You know,
but I don't know. But I don't know, GB, and I just want to ask you because I know that's kind of why we do what we do in INN News. Like, we want to try to educate people in issues that are not necessarily mainstream, even in our space. And
you know, please subscribe.
So please
whatever.
But I want to ask you, like, what can we do, or what, in your opinion, what can we do to help? Because the things that I know you talk about and the things that we kind of talk about are not necessarily popular in the space. Like, people want the drama, the salaciousness, which to some end, it's understandable. But on the other hand, we talk about revolution. We talk about direct action and making change. The things that I think we do or try to do to help promote people to do that are not necessarily, one, practically, the algorithm does not support that. But number two, I hate saying this, but our audience doesn't necessarily, well, if they know us, then fine, but the size of our audiences are not necessarily big compared to, you know, the trending stuff or the more salacious stuff. That will kind of drive people. Like, in your opinion, what do you think we should be doing to kind of counter that, to kind of help people understand, like, we get why you're watching and listening to all this stuff, but what we're talking about, what we need to be doing is way more important, because this is going to drive any election, any politician stands on, oh, I'm going to do this for you. We got to be more prepared in terms of, you know, coming up with, no, this is what we need you to do, because this is how our communities are suffering, especially within the Black community. And here's what we are demanding that you do for us, based on, you can fill in the blank here. Like, what do you say it's going to take for people to get there to actually, you know, move towards a movement in this space of learning versus sensationalism, I would say?
That's actually a really good question. Thank you very much for that. Well, I think one of the things that is important is to, you as an educator know that teaching somebody about something, you could either serve it two different ways. You can serve it in a way that is monotone, that is boring, that doesn't really invoke any type of emotional response and willingness to learn. Or you can flavor it up and make it sound entertaining while still being informative, so that when people actually come in and see what you're talking about, then it actually tastes good.
Right.
I'll put it like this. I can give you Doritos all day, baby. I can give you Doritos all day, but how is it really going to affect you nutritionally? It's not really going to affect you. Right. But if I give you some collard greens and I season it just right, if I give you some cornbread and then I give you some mac and cheese and then I put them ham hocks in there and all that, but if I make sure I season it just right, but I give you some meat and some veggies that will really benefit you,
right?
But then I don't just plop them on the plate. I should give you a great presentation to go with it.
Right.
Then maybe, just maybe, it will be appealing to people while still being educational at the same time.
Right.
Nice. And you, as an educator, you're teaching little kids, you have to keep their attention.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep their attention all the time. We are just large children. That's
and I will admit, I don't have the patience for large children.
Me neither. And I'm a large kid. I don't have patience for myself. Can you tell? But the thing is that it's like I look at myself, I'm like, well, how would I hold my attention? Okay, let me do this so that I can hold my own attention. And there's times where I'll be editing. I'm sitting there watching myself. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. That's how I know I can hold my own attention. If I'm sitting there and if I'm doing what Dr. Devon Price talks about in Laziness Does Not Exist, I'm cyber loafing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah. Then I didn't do my job.
Right.
And so the thing is like, it comes to being dynamic while talking about deep subjects, right? And being able to joke and laugh while talking about those deep subjects so that you're able to hold attention, but you're still able to educate the audience at the same time. And I think there are some people who have came and left in this independent space who will complain and say, well, they don't want to hear the deep topics. And yeah, that's true. Some people just don't want to hear it. But in the words of Bernie Mac, fuck them.
Uh-huh.
Go with
I ain't scared of y'all motherfuckers. Sorry, go continue.
But I ain't scared of you motherfuckers.
Fuckers?
But
That's the best bit of all time. I love that bit so much. Anyway.
But the point is that you take, the political education and then you add flavor to it. You add seasoning to it. Because some people, they just be boring as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd be like, and some of them be like, they have like 200-300 subscribers and they get like 2-3 people watching each stream, and they don't switch things up. They stay monotone the whole time, and they sound like Ben Stein. I'm like, yes. And then I'm like, will you step on a tack or something just to hide something? Like, God damn. Lord, that's the thing. And that's what I tell people. You got to have some personality in this space. If you ain't got no personality, people ain't going to listen to you.
Right. Yeah.
So the thing is like having the accuracy, having the education, the material analysis, or like they said in the beginning of March,
half the battle.
It is dialectical materialist analysis of what is going on, basically saying if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And you put that along with, having some spice in there so to wake people up, then you're able to do that.
Why is it spicy?
I got him for everything. He'll be here all week.
What you been adding on this?
Bro, I just got stuff, man.
Got him.
Like I got everything, Like
I like that one. I like that one.
I got the inside the bind of Mitch McConnell. I got that, I got everything. Don't worry about it. I wanted to ask JB, where were you informed on this particular issue. That'd probably be a good thing to go down the list of. Who educated you on this war in Ukraine situations?
Listen to different people regarding this. One of my favorite channels to listen to is The Left Lens with Danny Haifong. Very smart, very good analysis. Nick, my comrade from RBN, a very good wealth of information that came from him and helping to educate me on what's going on in Ukraine. And just one thing to say, and I know that, the article I was talking about, Black people need to be more aware of what's going on. One of the things that also helped me was seeing a Black person that was politically astute about foreign policy. You do not see that many Black people that are knowledgeable about foreign policy like they should be.
Right.
And so that also helped. People like Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report, who is also brilliant when it comes to her analysis, when it comes to things like this, I think is another really great resource. Richard Medhurst, who is going to be on my channel on Thursday.
Yeah.
He is also really, really good at that political analysis as well. So just a few people to mention.
Wake up, asshole.
That's Richie. Just making sure everyone's awake. Any others?
I'm trying to think because I don't want to blank on names and then start calling out names and then I forget other people. But as far as going over certain people in my head,
Nico. Nico's a great to add there too.
Nico is also really good. Yes.
Yeah.
House is also a really good resource
Fiorella,
to go to.
He's pretty great too.
Yeah, Fiorella Isabel. Yes, she is also a really great resource regarding what's going on in Ukraine, especially since she's moved to Moscow.
Yeah.
Right.
She's in Iran right now, doing some crazy stuff there.
Tara Reid, can't forget about Tara Reid. Tara Reid has also been a very strong educational voice regarding this. Oh, and Wyatt Reed. Wyatt Reed, also from the Gray Zone, is really good too. Ben Norton as well.
All those guys over at Gray Zone do great stuff on that.
Yeah. So that's why, I try to listen to as many of those voices. The anti-imperialist voices are really the key, because if they're anti-imperialist, those are the ones that will give you the
Vanessa
real
Beeley,
deal.
Alina Lip. I'm just going through the list in my head. Eva.
Yeah.
There's tons of good ones out there if you look. Some people have been even given awards. The Indie Media Award. I think RBN has one of those, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So,
but I do think, and I think just with the names that you mentioned, I think it's one thing to kind of mention them, and like we definitely, watch out for those guys too. But I think it's definitely, as you said, another thing to have a Black person who is knowledgeable on these, especially foreign policy issues too. And we need a lot more of them in the space. I mean, it's great to talk about domestic policy all day long, and I think that's fine and needed, but we definitely need people who are well-versed in foreign policy as well, especially how our tentacles are bridging in the global South in particular, and how we can kind of understand the reach of imperialism and colonialism has had, which I think in a lot of ways has caused a lot of this rift intentionally.
Foreign policy is domestic policy is foreign policy is domestic policy.
Right.
It's same
and
extensions of.
Like I know people who live abroad who are more versed on American politics than we are here.
I mean, that's almost
because
like
they understand.
They got army
because
bases
they
right near
understand
their
like
house.
the thing, right? But they also understand that the issues that they're succumb to more often than not have the roots here. So, so as I hear all the time whenever I'm abroad, people love America for its culture, and even though I'm kind of questionable right now, but hate the politics. And so we have to make that understanding as to why our politics are so hated, and learn from that, and kind of
That
start bridging those
influence
gaps.
to make me more astute when it comes to foreign policy was due to people like Margaret Kimberly, Nick Cruz from RBN, and I've also been encouraged by my comrade Sabby Sabs, because she's getting more deeper into foreign policy as well, and she encouraged me to do more of that too. So, just as far as Black people is concerned, they are the ones that really encourage me to be more adept at foreign policy, and I am just a whole lot better for it. And also a special shout out to Danny Haifong too.
Yeah. I mean, that leads us into the last question we'll get into. Why do you think Russia's doing so well with the global South? What's the historical context of that, you think? And China, for that matter.
Because imperialism is not the vehicle that they use in order to influence the world. How many military bases around the world do China and Russia have? I would beg to say there's less than 10 between the both of them.
Right.
Yeah.
That being said, then once you look at what China and Russia are doing, some people may criticize China for saying, well, they are, they're setting up debt traps. But at the same time, it's like, if they really are setting up debt traps, then why are they forgiving billions of dollars in debt for these African nations? Because that's exactly what they're doing, right? Putin just announced that he's forgiving, I think it's $23 billion in debt for African nations as well. So in reality, it's more of a mutually beneficial relationship between those two countries. Now, I had Omali Yeshitela on last week, and he was talking about how, yes, it is a beneficial relationship with these nations, but make no mistake that these African countries need to continuously look out for themselves and their self-determination,
exactly,
so that they are doing for themselves rather than trying to please any other superpower. They have to look out for themselves first, right? Which I fully agree with.
Yeah.
But what Russia and China are getting right is that they are influencing through honey versus what the United States and many other imperialist powers have done with vinegar. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically saying, okay, so I'm coming into the store and I'm going to give you money for what you have, and then you're going to give me exchange for goods. Whereas the United States, France, and the UK come in, busting through the door. Give me everything you got and make it quick and give me all the money in the register. That's basically what the United States and the Imperial Corps do. So one is going to rob your ass, while the other one's coming in with money in their hand and saying, all right, I'd like to buy what you have in the back. See what I mean? So that's the difference. So one is basically taking your shit with the barrel of a gun. The other one is buying your shit with the money in their hand. Which one are you going to go with? I'm going to go with the one that got money in their hand, and they're like, yeah, I would just like to buy your wares, sir. So that's basically the difference. This is why there's more of a friendly relationship with Russia and China with these African countries than there is with the United States and the rest of the Imperial West.
Yeah.
This is what they're getting right.
Right.
Because it's more of a soft power versus a hard power.
Right. Yeah.
So
I
but beat people in submission. The United States is basically an abusive boyfriend that knows nothing what to do except for to beat people to get it to love it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned on the show, having been in Africa, and you know this, JB, like it's a complicated relationship with China and Africa. Like there's certain things within China that I don't particularly agree with.
That's what it says on their Facebook. It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. You know,
Gotcha.
it's like I'm very mixed on that relationship. I definitely see some benefits, but I also see, especially being on ground and speaking to Africans there, how those in its own self can be exploited. So that I do think those issues need to be talked about. But generally speaking, in terms of the global relationship, I do understand compared to the West, absolutely. Like Russia and China, as you say, are dealing with them more diplomatically for the most part.
Right.
Compared to the West, that just
if it's resource
face up.
wars we're going to have, I think the easier route is making sure people like you and want to give you the resources, as opposed to like, look, it's still somewhat exploitative of the global South. I think that's agreed, you know, but it's like, if they're going to be exploited, might as well get paid for it, you know?
Right.
Like, you see in BRICS that they're making sure that these powers have equal rights among like global economic powers. Now there's some issues there too, especially with India, you know, still having these connections to the West. We've seen how that played out with recently, right? With the whole Azerbaijan thing, I think. I think that's what it was. And Brazil too. Yeah. Brazil still got connections here. You know, same thing.
Even
so
with
it's
BRICS,
like,
even with BRICS, I'm kind of like it's good, but I'm kind of like
if you're going to model it after the World Bank, that's not always the best thing to model stuff off of. But granted, you're doing it far better. Like that's the thing is like, even me saying that, I know it's a better deal. So
but as you said, at the end of the day, I would love to be alive if Africa, any nation in Africa is like, look, what you want? Like we have our own industry, we have our own infrastructure. Like if you want it, you can come for us to get it, versus the other way around of having like larger countries have to come in and support them. Like I would love for it to be that Africa can be this, well, traditionally it is, you know, given the resources. It's just a matter of using it in a way that is a lot more equitable and fair, and at the same time they're able to see the benefit of their own fruits being risen out from the continent, and then they're able to be in the position of autonomy and control in light of the global market. That's what I would love to see ultimately. But I think the key in that is, as you said, JB, for this article, and again, once again, thank you for writing it and sharing it with the space. We need to be better educated, and we need to be a lot more aware, especially as Black people, of the reality of the indication of what these wars mean. Well, we're hearing about Ukraine. I doubt any Black people here know what's happening in West Africa right now. And can you imagine if there was more awareness, how we would be challenged to make those kinds of demands from our politicians, you know, and essentially giving them the boot, you know, like these are the things that we need to be more aware of, so that it's not seen as,
what's
it's
happening
like,
in
those
Haiti.
poor
What's happening in West? There's been massacres recently, wholesale. Like,
those instances should be giving us like inspiration.
That can happen here.
We should be able to do this here.
Yeah,
we have done it here. So
thoughts,
just
JB?
giving us that.
Yeah. I say, you know, be less of a Jay-Z and more of a Thomas Sinclair.
Oh,
right?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh God.
it's just like, because I mean, if black people knew what Ibrahim Traore, did in Burkina Faso,
Mm-hmm.
that was gangster, right? That was
Right.
real gangster move, right?
What
Right.
was that?
The middle finger. Like,
What was the one
get out.
recently? Kill the boy. I love that. That was great. Do that again, please.
Mhm. So,
But anyway, JB, appreciate you being on. Where can people find you?
sure, you guys can find me at JB Font on Twitter. You can find me at JB Font on TikTok and Instagram. You can also find me on, at JB Font on my YouTube channel. So if you guys would like to, you guys can find me there. Also find me on the Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can find me there. Also on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble. You can find me on my channel, JB Font on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. So yeah, you can find me at those, and you can also find me at JB Font on Substack. Where my article was written.
Yep.
Almost forgot. I had a blonde moment. Sorry. So,
We'll make sure all your links in the description too. For those lazy people that don't exist, it's down there.
Right.
So anything else, Collin? No, I know.
I think...
Hold on. I'll bring it back. I have it. Don't worry. I got it. No, not it was like way down here. There it is. Look at that. You can go here. Get yourself some merch. Look at that. You can get the Joe Biden blew up the Nord Stream pipeline mug if you want. And a bucket hat, little flippies, white shorts, white hoodie to go with it. You can get the crop hoodie. Look at that. You can be all stylish and whatnot out there. You got it. Be out there. That's a look. The white on white look. What is that? Like P. Diddy, 1999.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop, baby. Anyway, we actually do have to stop. You got things to do probably. But anyway, we appreciate everyone coming. Appreciate you being a member. Look at that. You got your names down there. Right? And it's also telling you to like and subscribe, which you should do. Comment. Tell us what you think. Do all that fun stuff. But anyway, as always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam. How about if I have sound? We're here. Look at that. Don't go nowhere. We're still here. Where you going? Come back. No. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the segment with JB. We did. Great article.
Please support him at his Substack and support him. I know many of you do anyway, but definitely share it out. He tweeted it out, I think, last week. So as I said, we want to make sure that we are elevating commentators in the space in terms of the things that they produce. That includes our writing. So definitely give JB some love.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll be able to write more. Give him that encouragement. And yeah, follow him on his personal channel as well as RBN. So
yep.
But
we got those links right down there for you. But yeah, we're live. So I code's up, by the way, for you. In case you need that, which we might.
Yes.
But anyway.
Oh.
Once my co-host gets that put in. But hopefully everyone's doing well. Yeah, great talking with JB. The funniest thing was when we asked him why he wrote that, man. Oh, Nazis.
Right.
That killed me, dude.
Well, as I said to him, you write. Ideally, you should be writing out things you're passionate about. So, obviously, not to say you should be passionate for Nazis, but but the implications in terms of white supremacy in this country in general and how it affects Black people. So
Well, it
makes
affects
a lot of sense.
it affects a whole hell of a lot, you know. It affects things here, right in their very own Congress.
Right.
So, you know, you might be noticing some of what happened with this Beavis and Butthead lookalike. But you know, we'll get to it. And you're like wondering who this Spanish gentleman is. That's the president of Mexico. Wonder why he's here. Well, we'll get to it. So this is I wanted to shout out Dave DeCamp, right, over at antiwar.com. Does excellent work. If you're not following him, you should be, and his little outlet here. But they do great stuff if you actually want to keep up with the stuff in Ukraine, like JB was telling you to pay attention to. So it starts. Pentagon tells Congress it's running out of money to replace weapons sent to Ukraine. I wonder why that might be an issue, Collin. I wonder.
The money is there.
So the Pentagon says it's been forced to slow down the replenishment of our own forces. I didn't know we were sending our forces. I mean, I did, but some of you at home might not know. So the Pentagon has warned Congress that it's running out of money to replace stockpiles of weapons that have been sent to Ukraine and has been forced to slow down the replenishment of the U.S. military. The warning comes after Congress passed a short-term funding bill to avert a government shutdown that did not include money to continue the fueling proxy war in Ukraine. They didn't. I wonder what happened there, Care Bear. According to the AP, Pentagon Comptroller Michael McCord told House and Senate leaders that the U.S. military has $1.6 billion left of the $25.9 billion Congress has authorized to replace weapons poured into Ukraine. We know it's a whole hell of a lot more than that, Collin. We've been counting it, right? So anyway, we have already been forced to slow down the replenishment of our own forces to hedge against an uncertain funding future, McCord said in a letter to congressional leaders. Failure to replenish our military services on a timely basis could harm our military readiness. So they're saying we might need those. We might need it. Like, those are our weapons. We can't be sending those. Those are my favorite guns. You know?
God forbid that a country will actually terrorize us.
Right. The Pentagon also has about $5.4 billion remaining in presidential drawdown authority, which allows President Biden to ship weapons to Ukraine from U.S. military stockpiles. Okay,
like the cluster bombs that we're sending.
Yes, and the depleted uranium. Yeah, the $5.4 billion is what is left of the $6.2 billion that became available after the Pentagon claimed an accounting error. They made a oopsies. This is a big old little oopsies. That overvalued arms sent to Ukraine to the tune of $6.2 billion. I don't know what appraiser you're going to, but let me tell you, you need to fire that man or woman, whatever. Like, that Antiques Roadshow episode's real messed up. I'm just saying. Like, anyway, so freed up more money to spend on fueling the war. Yay, war. Everyone's favorite pastime. So McCord said the Pentagon is completely out of funds for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, which allows the admin to purchase weapons for Ukraine and is meant as a more long-term support. He said without new funding for the war soon, the Pentagon will be forced to restrict the types of arms being sent to Ukraine that are critical and urgent now as Russia prepares to conduct a winter offensive.
Like cluster bombs.
How well does offensives in the Russian winter work? Just historically, like, how great do those go? Like,
I mean, again,
for the Russians, fantastic. They're amazing at that. I'm just saying, like, they kind of know what they're doing there. You know, Napoleon had trouble. Hitler had difficulties. Like, it's kind of a thing. So That's why they're saying like, hey, we need more money. Winter's coming. Literally, that's what they're saying. We got to stop the White Walkers above wall. The White House it's about to go as well as that last season of Game of Thrones. I'm just saying. The White House has asked Congress to authorize an additional $24 billion for Ukraine, which would bring total U.S. spending on the war to about $137 billion with a B dollars. Okay, while some
really, I mean, $1 billion. Anytime you get over $1 billion, that's a lot of money. But
137 billion with a B.
Yeah, it's weird to say in this that it seems low, but it does to me.
Like people don't. I want you to think about a pallet of money. Okay, that's not $1 billion. Like that's far less than $1 billion. An entire pallet, shrink wrapped, like $100 bills, not $1 billion. Okay, 137. I think there's a visualizing $1 billion because that's important, right? We'll do it live. Hello, YouTube. Can I play? No. Give me. Oh, Jesus Christ. I might never mind this. Maybe. Where's the most replayed? Something like this. Is it going to play? Maybe.
Of $100 bills tips the scales at over twice the weight of an average killer whale. And if that boggles your mind.
So $1 billion is just one orca. The weight of one orca. That's $1 billion.
Or to phrase it another way.
Yeah.
If you get $1 a second from the day you were born.
Yeah.
It will take you almost 32 years to make $1 billion.
Over 256 million singles to cover Earth's 1.57 billion inch circumference. Though I'm not sure why anyone would want to spend over $250 million to turn the equator into a belly dancer's belt. I bet it'd give them something interesting to observe during their daily space flights. And
it would circumnavigate the globe.
Yeah.
Easily.
So yeah. So $1 a second, you get $1 billion in like just under 32 years.
Yeah.
$1 million if you make $1 a second will take about how many?
$1 million would circumnavigate the globe.
12 days.
So
12 days. So
right. Yeah, you'd have 137 billion. $1 billion is 100 millions. Or no. Yeah. No. 1,000. Because that's how numbers work. Metrics.
Right. Well, we can't process.
Right.
Like really million, but like billion is just
right. And then multiply that 1,000 times 1 million to get like 100 times 137. Like that's how much like would world hunger? What's the world hunger number? Isn't it like 3 billion or something like that? If
I can check.
I'm just saying 137 anyway. So
they're saying 267 billion.
Okay.
And world hunger.
We could cover half the world hunger right there easily.
Or let's keep it close to home. You can pay that off several times over.
Yes.
Here in just this country alone.
Right. Very easily. So, well, some House Republicans who oppose the proxy war have made it difficult to approve more aid. The majority of Congress still supports the policy, and the $24 billion is expected to pass once brought to a vote. Who would bring that to a vote, Collin? At this time, right? Like if we look at, this is October 2nd, who'd bring that up for a vote? At this time?
Well,
the Speaker of...
Well, McCarthy.
Yes.
Was.
Well, we're getting there. So just a little side note, a little tangent. We're not the only ones. Britain has run out of military equipment to give Ukraine. Methinks there's a pattern emerging. A British military source told The Telegraph, "We've given away just about as much as we can afford."
Or another way to say this, we've given away as much as we can afford to give before people make more noise about it than they already are.
So,
like we came to the point where we can no longer justify it.
Again, Dave DeCamp. So he writes, the UK has run out of military equipment that it can give to Ukraine, according to a senior British military source speaking to The Telegraph. We've given away just about as much as we can afford, the unnamed source told the paper, adding that the UK had a role to play in encouraging other nations to continue arming Ukraine. We will continue to source equipment to provide for Ukraine, but what they need now is things like air defense assets and artillery ammunition, and we've run dry on all of that. What does that sound like, Collin? I heard of another guy that ran out of bombs. If I remember correctly.
Wait a long periodically.
Thanks, Obama.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the wrong thing. So we've given away just as much as we can afford, right? We will continue. We read all that. They'll run dry. The UK has been a staunch supporter of the proxy war in Ukraine and has led many escalations in NATO support, including the provision of Storm Shadow cruise missiles, which have a range of 155 miles, and toxic depleted uranium ammunition for use with British-made Challenger 2 tanks. The Telegraph report came after Ben Wallace, who resigned as defense secretary last month, said he urged Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to spend billions more so Britain could overtake Germany as Ukraine's top supporter in Europe. The source speaking to The Telegraph said the onus should not be on London to provide the billions Wallace has called for. Giving billions more doesn't mean giving billions of British kit, the source said. Okay? So that's what they're saying too. They're saying the same thing we're saying. Like, hey, our people need that military equipment.
Right.
Like, so
not food, not healthcare.
No, we need those guns.
Housing. No, we need weapons.
Yes.
Because again, God forbid that countries try to bring us to a war.
Yep. Yep. So the UK's lack of arms for Ukraine is the latest sign that NATO support for the proxy war is fracturing. Poland recently declared it would no longer provide Ukraine with weapons over a grain spat. Slovakia elected a candidate who campaigned on ending military support for Ukraine, and Congress still has yet to authorize the additional $24 billion in spending on the war that President Biden is seeking. Remember who was going to bring that up for a vote, Collin? Another side note. Mexico president slams U.S. military support for Ukraine. I wonder why he might think that. So, Andrés Manuel López Obrador on Monday panned U.S. military aid to Ukraine, suggesting it was irrational, and stepped up criticism of the war effort as he urged Washington to devote more resources to helping Latin American countries. So he's trying to get his, right?
Nah.
Nah. Lopez Obrador had long called on the United States to devote more funds to helping economic development in Central America and the Caribbean in order to ease migratory pressures. Where's Kenya going, Collin? Where's that
Where's
at? Where's the
Kenya?
Kenyan police going? Where they heading?
Haiti.
There you go.
Haiti.
So he's trying to remind people like, hey, y'all gotta exploit us over here. We're closer. During his regular daily press conference, Lopez Obrador criticized the U.S. Congress for not freeing up money for the region before making reference to wrangling last week on a stopgap funding bill that stripped out further aid for Ukraine. I was just looking at how now they're not authorizing aid for the war in Ukraine, he said, but how much have they destined for the Ukraine war? $30 to $50 billion for the war, which is the most irrational thing you can have and damaging. So they do have to modify their strategy and learn respect. It's not the time for them to ignore Mexican authorities, Lopez Obrador added. That sounds like threats. Sounds spicy. So, remember this? We're gonna get to this later tonight as well. Because update. He got this. This happened. So Gates asked if McCarthy made a secret side deal with Biden on Ukraine aid, which we back up to those last couple of stories we read, is that they were trying to decide on whether they pulled it out of the stopgap, right? And this is what they're trying to, it was that side deal that was a problem, right? So Matt Gaetz on Monday night filed a resolution to oust House Speaker Kevin McCarthy after questioning if the House GOP leader cut a secret deal with the White House on Ukraine aid. A motion to vacate the speakership is considered a privileged resolution, giving it priority over other issues. McCarthy has 2 legislative days to schedule the resolution for a vote, although there are procedural mechanisms the speaker and his supporters could delay the vote or even potentially block it. Okay? A resolution to oust McCarthy would require a simple majority. Just a simple majority was all it needed. Since a handful of House Republicans have signaled that they would vote yes on the motion, McCarthy may need support from Democrats to maintain his speakership. No House Speaker has ever been removed through a motion to vacate. You mean like Nancy? Didn't happen with her? Wonder why that happened. Gates' decision to take a step toward ousting McCarthy came after the House passed a stopgap funding bill over the weekend that was supported by Democrats. The bill did not include the $24 billion in Ukraine aid that President Biden wanted, but he signed it into law anyway. What was the secret side deal on Ukraine? Gates said on the House floor a few hours before filing the motion to vacate. McCarthy has denied he made a side deal. No, it wasn't me, he says. But President Biden said Sunday that he expects the speaker to keep his word and secure the passage of support for Ukraine at this critical moment. So, you know the thing. He better do what he says.
And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
All right. So Kevin McCarthy says, bring it on. Bring it on. What happened, Collin? What happened?
I mean, he didn't.
He didn't. He didn't bring nothing. Nico House, given the great memes on that. Good for you. The Jimmy Dore Discord. Another didn't age well this time, found on CNN's website. McCarthy says he's not at all concerned that he will be a short-lived speaker. Asked if he is concerned that he could not be a short-lived speaker because the concessions he made to give one member the power to call for a vote seeking a speaker's ouster, McCarthy said, no, not at all. Well, you should have been, huh? I mean, thoughts before we get to the rest of this story.
Well, I was going to say this in this upcoming segment, but I think I might say it here. You notice how people people are basically giving Gates a lot of press right now, but no one is in far as ousting McCarthy, but no one's talking about as to the situation that you just shared as to why.
Right.
And I'm sure like there were other issues that could have cited, along with Gates having the balls to actually follow through with creating that resolution to kick McCarthy out of the speakership. But no one, at least what I'm seeing in social media and even what I'm seeing online, with a few exceptions that we'll talk about, no one has mentioned the fact that Ukraine was tied to this.
Yes.
And which I think is very interesting. And I think it still kind of shows like the complacency that our media has. But even in independent media, like, yeah, we were talking about like Gates was getting a lot of press, McCarthy was getting a lot of press, even the squad was getting a lot of press, but no one was mentioning the issues surrounding
why
Ukraine,
it's happening.
Which, again, if this were the squad, and we'll get into that, they should have been honestly leading the charge on this too, especially if they tied this to
there was
progressive issues that are
anti-war
popular
rally recently that like MTG shows up to, like, but I digress. But yeah, I mean, no one's talking about why. You're especially in mainstream stuff, right? Like,
as far as I know, but I highly doubt they will. Like, you in the chat, you can let us know if you heard anything on mainstream
Bernie
media.
out here being like, we got to have more funding for Ukraine.
Right.
As well as arresting people for literally bringing his quote. So, you know, fun times, everyone. Don't worship politicians is all I gotta say.
And they say that Republicans are the lesser evil.
Yep. Turns out they're both evil. Turns out. Holy shit. Like. Anyway, you ready for our next story?
Sure. I'm probably gonna need some help with you on this because you were more excited about this than me. And you pulled it together more than me. Well, you were not excited, but you were a willing participant in putting this together more so than me. I was tired. To be fair, I was very tired last night.
Yeah, you were like, bye, I gotta go sleepies.
Yes.
Like, all right.
But as we said, we normally don't do stories like these. We normally don't do like the hot topics in independent media, but once again we feel one, we would kind of be reporting on this as it was more or less as it was happening, since we knew people will start talking about this today. Number two, this is kind of more of a victory lap, for us in terms of what it means in regarding force to vote, which we are advocates for at INN. But as we said, we are tying this to a larger issue as to the why, which Reef, you kind of shared in the previous segment. Yep. But it will also have a little fun and give some of our friends some praise in terms of what they were saying online yesterday. So of course, we guys all know McCarthy got the boot yesterday as Speaker of the House. And I'm sure Brett Wilkins, friend to the show, had to write this last minute because, as he has said to us, he normally doesn't do domestic policy stories like this. That's not necessarily his expertise. But we haven't heard from Brett for a while, so we're going to give him a shout with this quick article where he writes, GOP political arsonists get their man. McCarthy ousted in historic House vote. In less than a year, historic. That's that word again. That should be a shirt too. In less than a year, Kevin McCarthy has proven himself to be the weakest House Speaker in modern history. A Republican bill.
You're weak.
That's crowd.
You're weak.
So you might need to move your screen because it's in the way.
Yeah, sorry. Let's do, how about that?
That's perfect. Thank you.
So weak.
All right.
So weak.
For the first time in U.S. history, the House of Representatives voted to oust its own leader yesterday after a motion by far-right Republican Matt Gaetz of Florida to vacate the appointment of Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy's speakership passed with 8 GOP votes and the support of every Democrat present. So remember that number, okay?
Yeah. Yep.
The 216-210 vote to remove McCarthy came after his allies failed to come up with enough votes to table the motion to vacate.
So you're telling me there would have been 0 Republicans to like vote out Nancy Pelosi? Is that what you're saying? There wouldn't have been any to? Okay.
Well, I mean, I'll say this now. I would argue that there would have been some Republicans who would have loved to vote against Nancy Pelosi.
Almost all of them. Might have.
Pretty much all of them.
Almost all of them. And then you would have only needed how many Democrats? How many Democrats would you have needed?
That's for shits and giggles.
8 Democrats is all you would have needed?
But not even that, but like technically, theoretically, about 100, because the Congressional Progressive Caucus is about 100 people deep.
Yes,
you would think that all of them would be
like
what? About 12. Well,
so you would only need
about a dozen of them.
So you only need 8 of them, and the rest of the Republicans, which, you might not get every Republican, but, you make it up for in the... I mean, I'm just saying sometimes strategy is a thing with numbers and, that we might have known some shit. I'm just saying we might have known some shit. I'm just saying. Anyway, continue. Y'all motherfuckers wrong out the gate.
In addition to Gaetz, the Republicans who voted for the motion to vacate were Republicans Biggs, Buck, Burchett, Crane, Good, Mace, and Rosendale. Haven't heard of any of them, so
yeah,
never mind.
I heard about Good, but
all Americans should watch this latest spectacle and know House Republicans have no business running a lemonade stand, let alone the Congress.
Okay.
Those lawmakers have accused McCarthy of being insufficiently conservative. They were incensed by his deal with the White House to raise the debt limit earlier this year and have demanded the House to make deeper cuts to social safety net programs than the deal contained. The pro-democracy group Stand Up America say in a statement that today's vote to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker shows how intent ultra-MAGA Republicans are on sowing chaos and dysfunction rather than actually governing on behalf of the American people. Okay?
I mean,
so
if the Democrats were running a lemonade stand, they put some rainbow flags up, but they do the same thing the Republicans did the week before.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying,
It's clear who's really in charge of the GOP conference. Matt Gaetz and his band of political arsonists, the group added. MAGA Republicans' sole agenda is to grind the federal government to a halt, use their power to exact political revenge, and attack our democracy and basic freedoms. We can't expect the same election deniers who tried to overthrow the will of voters on January 6th to legislate for the American people now. On Monday, Gaetz accused McCarthy of making a secret side deal with President Joe Biden to provide more funding for Ukraine. It's going to be difficult for my Republican friends to keep calling President Biden feeble while he continues to take Speaker McCarthy's lunch money in every negotiation.
Except, is that what happened? I mean, sure. It's also Biden's doing plenty that McCarthy would like, so...
Right.
Such
as
almost like Pelosi with Trump. Almost
negotiated away the right to not cancel student debt, but
right,
cutting the deadline.
Yes.
So
Yep.
Yep. McCarthy didn't have to fight hard for that.
No.
So
no, it's almost quid pro quoing and setting it up for you to have nice, easy pitches to hit. But whatever.
Right. And funny enough, people forgot that, because I got some of that. No, I got some of that on Twitter. That might have to be an extra story regarding how certain Democrats, many of them progressive, voted to stop to have student loan debt restart in the guise of, oh, we had to because the Republicans were going to cut social service spending and all that stuff. Bitch, that's happening anyway. We reported how Biden has already cut Medicare now that we're out of the pandemic. That's already happening without the Republicans' help. So, you could make the case in terms of we refuse to vote for a dirty bill because and the Republicans are attaching these demands regarding social services in addition to restarting student loan debt when Biden said that he was going to cancel it. But you didn't hear any Democrat, as far as I know, make us think about that. It was just like, oh, well, it's going to be restarting, and then maybe we'll write some well-meaning or forceful letters to try and convince Biden to cancel student debt well after the fact. But you're going to go off on this over Gates doing this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, McCarthy's chances of remaining in the Speaker's chair took a big hit yesterday when House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries signaled that Democrats would do nothing to help salvage the Speaker's chair, vowing instead to vote in favor of his ouster. Given their unwillingness to break from MAGA extremism in an authentic and comprehensive manner, House Democratic leadership will vote yes on the pending Republican notion to vacate the chair, Jeffries wrote in a Dear Colleague letter. Congressional Progressive Caucus Chair Jamil Jayapal told reporters Tuesday that we are not voting in any way that will help Republicans. There's a reason after reason just to let Republicans deal with their own problems, she added. Let them wallow in their pigsty of incompetence and ability to govern.
Except, what did you do?
Yeah.
What did you do, Jamal? What did you do? Huh? You voted to oust him.
Pot, meat kettle.
Yes. Yes. Oh, man, that shit black. You black. But every Democrat voted for what, Collin? To get rid of their weak speaker?
Right.
So that they might have a chance to have a better speaker? Is that not helping the voting for helping? Anyway, continue.
New acting speaker pro tempore, Republican Patrick McHenry, will now take the gavel until someone is elected to take McCarthy's place. Responding to McCarthy's pending ouster in a statement ahead of the final vote, Republican Bill Pascrell said that in less than a year, Kevin McCarthy has proven himself to be the weakest House Speaker in modern history.
So you helped him. Okay, yeah. Continue.
Every decision Mr. McCarthy has made with eyes only on the Speaker's gavel, he continued. Governance and trust have been secondary. Mr. McCarthy made corrupt bargains with right-wing extremists to seize power.
Who?
He handled these misfits the tools they now wield against him, so let him negotiate with these wolves. All Americans should watch this latest spectacle and know House Republicans have no business running a lemonade stand, let alone the Congress, Pascrell said. The House Republican majority can decide who they want to be Speaker of the House, but the Speaker cannot count on me to save him from the inmates he empowered in the Republican asylum.
Oh God, Collin, did they get like the Game of Thrones last season writers to write their responses? Is that what happened?
I didn't watch Game of Thrones, so you'll have to kind of explain that to me.
I'm sure my audience will agree. That's what, like, they would negotiate with these wolves. This fucking flowery bullshit nonsense that you're spitting out here. They empowered the Republican asylum because is there a Democratic asylum? You think that doesn't exist? Okay. You know, I mean, whatever.
I would argue that the squad is living in that asylum.
Yeah, there's a few people in that. But you know, whatever. Both sides bad. Well, Nico here. House speakers for both U.S. and Canada have been ousted within a week of each other, all because of Ukraine. Imagine losing your job because you couldn't say no to Nazis. That's, I mean, I think Nico wins. Nico gets $200. You know,
and his tweet did very well. So yeah.
Here's Jim Jam with his take. Day after day, we are shown that force the vote was the correct strategy, and AOC and the fraud squad turned on their base and sided with the establishment. Imagine the energy, enthusiasm, and power to make demands the left could have had if they were more like Matt Gaetz and less like themselves. Jimmy, we can whisper of a dream with you. It's okay. We could whisper of it. Don't forget the liars in the lefty media who slandered us and lied to protect crooked politicians such as Jink Uger and Ryan Grimm, etc., etc., etc. We know some of those folks. But first, I think we all need dance break.
2, 3, woo! Force the
We even had a song.
You know that you have got to force the vote. You know that you have got to. Do you want to be a fighter? Now's your time. You have got to try to make the future brighter. You have got to stand for what is right. Come together and go out a little better for me. And you, yeah. Do you want to be a fighter? Do you want to force the vote? You know that you have got to force the vote. You know that you have got to.
You think Matt was listening to that this weekend?
Probably not, but
why? Wait. Here. Exit. Okay, next. No. Next. Is it gonna go? So Bree weighs in. Democrats gave up power largely because certain leftists were too stupid to understand politics and too smug, small, and petty to listen to those of us who did. A once-in-a-generation opportunity squandered. Really embarrassing stuff from the establishment left. Bree, I got words, but, you know, good for you on this one. You know, I'll let you run your victory lap.
Again.
Let's go back and remember the battles we once had.
Third or fourth or
round. Wait a second.
Round of
second
voting.
round. Second round. Now you have 15 people who vote for Hakeem Jeffries, 200.
So we're in that second round now.
15 who vote for McCarthy, and 205 who vote for Nancy Pelosi. What happens then, Virgil?
Wait, hang on. Why would if memory serves, McCarthy
So
got
these
212 votes? So you're not saying that number goes up?
No, I'm suggesting
That's
in round
every
two,
Republican.
in round two,
In
one
round
of two
two,
things has to happen.
nobody can marshal a majority, so it goes to round three.
No. You don't need you need a plurality of names.
That's not true.
It would
That is
require
not true.
Democrats would have to vote for Kevin McCarthy to be speaker. Or
Sam,
a large number would have to abstain altogether.
Yes,
Republicans would have to vote for Hakeem Jeffries.
Which they're not going to do.
Which they're not doing.
They're not.
No.
Abstain under your scenario, Sam. You need a majority of the people voting for a name.
Okay, so let's say,
which is to say, not voting present, which means
not voting
that if every single Democrat shows up and they vote for someone, then unless they have a majority within that caucus, I'll say it's not a majority, and this is again assuming the Republicans voted as a bloc and they are a minority, and no Democrat is going to vote for McCarthy, obviously, then it's just going to keep going to successive ballots.
Right.
And this is not an unprecedented situation.
Right.
It's simply a situation we've not had in 100 years.
And importantly, this could go on for dozens of rounds, as it did in the historical precedent that Virgil is nodding to. And this is where we start to talk about media attention and spectacle, where Nancy Pelosi, who 3/4 of Americans want to step down, a bipartisan majority of people can't stand Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, who is
so like if all of the Republicans wanted to get rid of her, they could have easily voted. It's almost like if all of the Democrats voted against McCarthy. Oh wait, that's what happened.
Well, we got to talk about Democrats because the Republicans, the Republicans are irrelevant.
Yeah, it's like half of Democrats want her. I think it's a majority of Democrats want her to step down. So the question is, isn't this part of the spectacle that we're trying to create around the issue of why 15 million people just lost their health insurance and what the government is going to do about it in this moment? So we don't end up in a situation where Joe Biden is saying, let's do more COBRA payments, let's give more giveaways to the private insurance industry. And even if it doesn't result, obviously, in Medicare for all tomorrow, what it does is finally force has the best chance of
What? Why did it?
Third or fourth or
wait a second.
An unprecedented situation.
Right.
It's
where Nancy Pelosi, who 3/4 of Americans want to step down, a bipartisan majority of people can't stand Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, who is down.
Well, we got to talk about Democrats because the Republicans, the Republicans are irrelevant.
Yeah, it's like half of Democrats want her to. I think it's a majority of Democrats want her to step down. So the question is, isn't this part of the spectacle that we're trying to create around the issue of why 15 million people just lost their health insurance and what the government is going to do about it in this moment? So we don't end up in a situation where Joe Biden is saying, let's do more COBRA payments, let's give more giveaways to the private insurance industry. And even if it doesn't result, obviously, in Medicare for all tomorrow, what it does is finally force has the best chance of.
Oh, that's where it does end. Gotcha. Cool. Thoughts so far, Care Bear?
I mean, I remember her saying this 2 years ago. But the idea of and I'll say this and I'm going to use nice language. I'm going to say this for the people who need a lot of patience to understand the idea of forced to vote, because there's still some people online who believe or are trying to spin the idea of, oh, you can't do forced to vote because there was no way that we were going to get Medicare for all in this case.
What's your profanity?
It was never about getting Medicare for all. We knew, people who were intelligent knew there was that wasn't going to happen. What was going to happen is exactly what is happening now with Gates. The fact that he has gotten so much attention, really, I can make the argument for the last year, like he's been getting a lot of attention in terms of him just going up against Kevin McCarthy, and not necessarily for anything really tangible for the American people per se, but the demands that his caucus was making to basically have Kevin McCarthy basically kind of kneel and cry uncle. That's what we were trying for the squad to do to Nancy Pelosi, to make her kneel in exchange to kneel in, to exchange the idea of you are withholding progressive policies that the American people want in the middle of a fucking pandemic. If you want to remain speaker, you would offer, and it didn't have to be Medicare for all. Take your pick of any progressive policy.
Right.
Offer something up to the floor for a vote. And otherwise, we will just withhold our vote. And the idea of what we're seeing now, and what we're probably going to see over the next few weeks, I would imagine, because now whoever the new speaker of the House is, knows now that they have to deal with Gates. And Gates can basically be like, fuck you, I'm not voting for you. Like, until you meet our demands. So this circus probably continue for weeks, in the same way that we wanted the squad to do this for weeks in terms of actually doing something for the people. But no, they punked out because they were too afraid of their careers to be willing to make the stand that Gates did in order to get the result that they ran on to deliver for the American people.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of bringing more attention, and this is the thing with mainstream media, because even Jordan Charlton said this. Mainstream media loves the drama. This is essentially a fucking soap opera.
Imagine, whisper of a dream with me, of we do this during the height of a pandemic about single-payer healthcare. That's not a whole cycle of stuff that is important to your supposed progressive, anyway.
Right. As Indy said in the chat, the media would be forced to talk about it, because we haven't talked about Medicare for all since then.
Right.
That
That's
has been
being forced to cover Ukraine at least a little bit.
Right. So that was the idea, is to force that media swell that would kind of garner people as far as organizing, as far as getting out in the streets, to push politicians, and especially if politicians would dare to try and vote against Medicare for all, again, insert progressive policy here,
right,
in the middle of a damn pandemic, or even now when, especially with inflation, that people are trying to scrap by on whatever money or whatever it means they can. I want to see the actual politicians will be that heartless to vote against their constituents in terms of what they want. That was the idea of forced to vote. It wasn't necessarily to get Medicare for all. That wasn't going to happen. But it was the idea of to force the media to talk about something that they've been implicit in not talking
which we've talked about,
because
we've talked about them doing that in House Dems tried to do that with gun control when they had no power to do it. So obviously this is a strategy. They just don't know when to use it.
No, they know when to use it. They're just too chicken to do it.
Right. Literally. But they'll do it over a thing that they know they're going to lose on, so that they same thing with student debt stuff, right? They just,
right.
And then they we got to get reelected and then we'll fix it. It's do you think we're
dumb, stupid, or dumb? Huh?
Which one? Anyway, back to the stupids. Sam Cedar, we were joking on the show today that no one could be this stupid, and yet retweeting Jimmy here talking about that it's exactly force the vote, which it is. It's exactly what it's literally the same thing, right? Bree, he still seems unable to make an argument or explain why he couldn't comprehend that there was no real risk of Kevin McCarthy becoming Speaker of the House if progressives had tried to force the vote. But hey, he's always calling me angry because he lost a friendly debate. Take the L, bro.
And, apparently, Bree blocked me, but apparently, I guess Sam was being like a bitch to Bree, I guess, over the last day in terms of this. So,
right. So, Indy, who's in the chat now, adds those were and are status quo corporatist, Bree. Labels are bad anyway. Anyone against, I wonder where he got this. Anyone against force the vote as a strategy was straight wrong, and they still act like they've been right and vindicated the whole time. It's the ultimate gaslight to call them leftists at all, but labels are meaningless. That they are, sir. They're meaningless, they're bad, they're terrible. Stop using them. Whether that be labeling a country or yourself or someone else, just stop it. Just stop it. Okay? Like, anyway, Max Blumenthal, it was always unreasonable to expect the squad to do to Pelosi what Gates did to McCarthy. They're moved by an aspiration to celebrity, sounds like other people we talk about, lacking in political education, and the progressive forces that brought them to power protected them from pressure from Jimmy Dore and others. Where was the first place that this lady went on in independent media?
Jimmy Dore.
Oh, Jimmy Dore. So biting the hand that feeds, right? So the numbers were identical, which we've said numerous times this story. So look at that. Squad absent or present votes 8. Look at that. 8 votes, all you needed. You had 12 of them in the squad. You had 100 progressive caucus members.
Right, really.
Like
theoretically, that should have blown out of the water. Really,
Right.
If all the progressives in the progressive caucus actually did what they were seemingly what they should have been doing.
What happened? Survey says didn't happen. Like Bree again, truly insane how well these clips hold up. Which clip, you say? Well, let's read what the clip said originally. This is a situation where there's leverage because of the narrow majority in the House, like we saw in January with the Force the Vote campaign. If 10 or so progressives were willing to withhold their vote, the posture of this situation would change dramatically. Okay?
I think I remember Ilhan Omar saying only needed 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's enormously disappointing. Look, there has been some diversity of opinion in the House. We had Rokana on the show earlier this week. He was very clear that he would not vote against the stimulus on the basis of the $15 minimum wage not being included. However, other progressives have been more flexible on this issue. Jamal Bowman has indicated that he's very frustrated that the House isn't fighting, House Democrats aren't fighting harder, rather. And you heard Pramila Jayapal indicate something similar. So, people like David Sirota, smart political reporters who have been on the Hill a long time, have pointed out that this is a situation where there is leverage because of narrow majorities in the House, the narrow Democratic majority in the House, in the same way as we saw last month or back in January with the Force the Vote campaign. If, 10 or so progressives were willing to withhold their votes, the posture of this conversation would change dramatically. If Republicans are willing to say they're not going to vote for this enormously popular stimulus bill because they think they're giving Americans who are struggling in an unprecedented way too much money, it's really damning when you look at Democrats who are unwilling to hold the line to give Americans more, the help they actually voted for and the help they actually need.
Yeah.
Yep. So 10 would have just had to withhold their vote.
Sure.
Not even vote. Just withhold it. So, no, I don't want to hear that again. Thank you. Next, please. Go. There we go. I spoke with my former boss, Autopilot, on this week's premium episode of Bad Faith Pod about his role in Force the Vote debate, confronting him on his pay-go take, his Jayapal interview, and accusations that he carried water for the squad. I mean, pay-go, it's not sexy, Collin. Collin, it's not sexy. But it's something. It's something. So, enjoy this airplane blooper from Autopilot here.
When it comes to you, particularly Ryan, and some of the frustrations that some folks on the left have with you, it's because to many of us, when they did not actually secure an end to pay-go, it was validation of the fact that they should have actually used leverage instead of doing whatever they were doing behind the scenes. They should have actually held up the vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House until they got some concrete, full-blown get rid of PAYGO. And at the time, your tweets about how they had actually secured a win in getting rid of PAYGO because they got PAYGO exemptions that apply to bills pertaining to the environment.
What happened to those exemptions, Collin? What happened to those? Something happened to those. They might have not actually been as rock solid as we were led to believe.
And healthcare,
public coronavirus, public health,
and climate,
right,
which are
relevant.
Which
I would argue you could drive a truck through. Like
sure, but I would also argue that the $15 minimum wage clearly is within the parameters for reconciliation, and that's what many people thought until the corporatists in the Democratic Party decide what they want to do with it. And so it's subject to the same kinds of interpretations, right? So
true, but the budget chairman was a Medicare for All supporter, and like
there was but
behind this, anyway.
Even Pramila Jayapal, we're now learning, who I would have...
No, you are making assumptions there, Ryan. What are you doing? You know what that makes you?
Up until this moment, considered to be a real progressive ally. I don't mean to cast aspersions, but we now have reporting that she was the one that was arguing to take $15 minimum wage, to drop the fight for 15, and she was corralling all of the rest of the progressives not to fight on that issue.
She was saying, don't hold up the House bill to fight over 15.
Yeah. Why? So, I mean, there are all kinds of pressures operating on different people that are separate and apart from who they are deep inside and what they want secretly in their heart and all of that. I can't deal with that. That's between them and whatever they believe in.
We're not going to make
all I know is how they're behaving. And at the time, Ryan, the fact that you were driving that point home so hard and really advocating for, the idea that they had truly won something.
Are you sure about that?
That was super relevant and consequential. Seemed like it was, in the terms of the internet, carrying water for these squad members to whom the rest of us perceived as having pretty obviously lost an important fight that they could have won.
I mean, what? Like, no, I don't want to hear Ryan again. Thank you. Next, please. Why?
Do you want me to do the slides?
No, it's just taking a second for some reason. Look, Chunk Yogurt. If the Democrats vote with McCarthy, they have to ask for something that's actually going to help the American people, not just more earmarks and privileges for themselves. Ask for a vote on paid family leave. It polls at 84%. There's no reason why we can't pass it. I wonder what he's saying there. That almost sounds like you're advocating for the Democrats to strategy of force the vote. He's hoping you forget he lied about it and sided with crooked politicians while slandering grassroots activists, while the Democrats actually had the power to do it. Fraud Squad defender, Chunk Yogurt, Fat Tony. Look, Collin. I think people know that guy. The squad should be eating crow right now. They should be embarrassed for not doing the very thing that Matt Gaetz was willing to do. Imagine them having the balls to hold Pelosi or Jeffries accountable. Imagine, Collin. Whispering of dreams. Look, Hardlands Media with everything that took place. Turns out Jimmy Dore, Brianna Joy Gray, Hardlands Media, Nico House, Get Indie News, Red Black Network, and so many others were correct about force the vote. Never forget those that stood against it. Okay? Hey, thanks for the shout out. One of our highest viewed videos is on the matter. You can find it here. How many views on that?
Not one of our highest, the highest today.
The highest, 2.5K. It's right here. I'll put it in chat. Look at that. If I open speaker notes. Hey, I can do stuff. Cool. But yeah, we covered that. Copy, paste into chat. Go watch that. Give that some more views.
Monetized, by the way, folks.
Yes, it did. And we covered House Dems trying to force the vote here, which we did. I'll put that link in
guns.
So, go watch those things. But Nick from RBN, after seeing what is happening to Kevin McCarthy due to the actions of small militant caucus, almost like the squad, I'd be less members than the squad had, I think. It'd be embarrassed if I was someone on the left who spoke out against force the vote when we demanded AOC and the squad do the same to Nancy Pelosi. How does it feel to be proven so completely wrong and exposed as a naive political child? I bet it don't feel great, Collin.
Nope.
So,
but they're gonna lie about it, though.
That's our story.
Look,
so
I'll just say this to close, and I said this on Twitter earlier today. Like, ultimately, I mean, we had our fun yesterday. We were just kind of like, oh, I mean, as we said, we couldn't have imagined that McCarthy would have been ousted as speaker. We didn't see that. I personally did not see that happening at all.
Yeah.
But it happened, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's going to be another corporate goon that's going to be speaker.
Yep.
Does this really change anything? No.
So, although it
not
might,
right now, and
it'll
not,
change some stuff on specific things that it might change.
right. I mean, the only benefit is that, well, for at least for Matt Gaetz and company,
yeah,
that any new speaker coming in basically has to be like, oh shit, I have to deal with these folks.
I mean, it might,
what do they want?
It might get us out of Ukraine and into
China.
What?
Right. So,
right.
That's right, bitches.
Like, right. And it's funny, and how I'm going to say this, Marjorie Taylor Greene today, I wouldn't say infiltrated, but she visited the Code Pink rally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have issues. I mean, I kind of called out some hypocrisy, but granted, all of that, I have to wonder, did anyone in Code Pink talk to her or challenge her about, okay, you want to get out of Ukraine, how you plan to do that?
Yep.
How are you going to force that to happen? And then, what, like, you're going to pull, so even if you do pull out of Ukraine, what are you going to do against China? Well, Taiwan.
Ask them!
I'm sure they didn't.
Ask them!
So I'm sure they rather just took that picture, picture that they did, and just to give, just as a way for her to troll the squad, basically. Which, I mean, she had every right to do it, but we got to keep her accountable too. And this is to the people who say to me that, oh, you defend Republicans. Like, I don't defend Republicans. It's a matter that the Democrats, whom seemingly supposed to be better, to me, are much worse.
Yeah.
And people just give them a pass, I think, more often than not, because they're Democrats and they allegedly do things slightly better, or at least are well-intentioned than Republicans are.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want about Gaetz, but he did the damn thing really from the moment that Kevin McCarthy became speaker. And it just sucks that this just kind of proved us right 2 years ago. The fact that I and others marched around Congress trying to appeal to the congressmen at that time who were getting sworn in, to actually follow through on the things that, that they ran on and they chickened out to do it, only to have their Republican counterparts do the shit that we asked them to do, and not necessarily for great reasons, I would argue, depending on how you look at it. But as we said, could you imagine, like, the fervor in the media in terms of Pelosi actually bending to her knees in name of the squad. And as much as these larger channels will say, oh, what's the vote wouldn't work, if the squad did that, they'll be fucking praising them all day long. Like, if anything that will make more people want to consider being Democrats, truly. But no, they couldn't do that. So we're stuck in this position now that the squad look like idiots. Gates is going to be talked about probably for the next few weeks, if not months, depending how long this new speakership process goes. And as I said, this is going to be more of a circus while in the meantime we're broke.
Yep.
Or the meantime that we're homeless. Or the meantime we don't have any health care. Or in the meantime, more money.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
Colin, you're forgetting the micro, man. The micro's there.
Sure.
The macro's there too.
Yeah.
Hey, it's not sexy, Colin. Anyway, I'm ready for our last story.
Yeah.
So
now you said this is a spooky story, and
it's spooky for sure. Very spookies. So it's spooky month, everyone. Happy Halloween month. I figured I saw this from Declassified UK. It's very spooky. It will terrify you like it should. But yeah, it's the Phantom parrot, Colin. There's ghost parrots. Why? Why are there ghost parrots? I'm waiting for ghost parrots. It's spooky. So Phantom Parrot, the secret state's tool for mass intelligence gathering. Okay. Very spooky stuff. The British police can obtain the mobile phone passwords of members of the traveling public in order to download their data in a program linked to spy agency GCHQ, a new film shows. So Kate Stonehill over at Declassified. This is from September, which is why I know you guys would be talking about it if you had read it, because it was a while ago. So this is the movie they're talking about, and I'm gonna play the trailer. I might throw the little copyright filter on it, but this is like a minute and something, so we should be okay. Hopefully the people that are free speech activists aren't gonna come after us for playing it. People should go watch the actual movie. You might have to look up how to find it. But Phantom Parrot is the name of the movie, so we're gonna watch the little trailer.
You cannot be a good investigator if you do not understand and use technology. Now, everything that we do involves this. We'd need a specific forensic tool to break that encryption for us to get that information out of that phone.
If you're asked for your password and you're also threatened that if you do not hand over your password, you could end up in prison for 3 months, would you give your passwords?
In normal situation, they would need like a warrant to get that information. Under this power at the border, they don't need any of that. They just decide, this person, I'm going to stop this person.
Now, these are powers that are capable of being misused, and most powers that are capable of being misused will be misused.
So that's a little intro. Go check out the movie, but Declassified continues. When human rights activist Muhammad Rabbani refused to hand over, which you saw him in that little trailer, hand over the passwords to his electronic devices at Heathrow Airport, he was charged with an offense under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act. So just that right there, just not giving your phone password at an airport, okay? We've had a few of our friends detained while traveling, similar to this, and if they don't give up their passwords, what do you think happens?
Yeah.
Okay? Right. So, under Schedule 7, right? So this is a UK law that allows authorities to stop anybody at the border and ask them for personal information, including passwords. At the time of his stop, Rabbani was returning from Doha, the capital city of Qatar. He had been taking testimony from a Qatari man named Ali Al-Mari, who alleges that he was detained and tortured on mainland U.S. soil for being a suspected terrorist. Rabbani had never previously been suspected or accused of a crime. Unlike most members of the traveling public, though, he was intimately familiar with the law he was stopped under. As the managing director of CAGE, which campaigns against discriminatory state policies related to the war on terror, he routinely works with individuals facing terrorism charges. The documents he obtained from Al-Mari would later form part of a campaign mounted by CAGE highlighting allegations of U.S. government torture at the hands of the FBI. Okay? Rabbani estimates that he's been stopped around 20 times traveling through airports. He is unequivocal that this stop felt different. Very early on in the questioning, without actually going through any substantial interview process, the police officers were asking about my devices, he said to me. When I interviewed him for a new feature documentary, Phantom PARROT, they wanted access to the devices. In a Schedule 7 interrogation, you do not have the right to remain silent. Failure to respond is a potential crime. This effectively turns the refusal to disclose one's passwords into a potential crime, too. What does that sound like, Collin? What right are they taking away if it's ours? Which one of those? Where, you could, I don't know, plead the fifth?
Yeah.
So under this, no pleading of the fifth. So how does that work? Schedule 7 can be exercised without the need for suspicion. Okay? That's a big part of this. They can just decide what is Schedule 7 and what isn't. Okay? It's literally like you don't even need to smell weed. You can just detain them. Right? So, unlike many other powers, Schedule 7 can be exercised without the need for suspicion. In theory, anybody passing through a UK port or border can be stopped and compelled to hand over their passwords. When the Terrorism Act was passed in 2000, British lawmakers originally envisioned Schedule 7 as a provision that would enable terrorism suspects to be questioned at the border. Even though smartphones didn't exist back then, parliamentary debates reveal that certain lawmakers expressed concerns about the Act's invasion into civil liberties. These politicians recognize the need to strike a delicate balance between national security and societal freedoms. Concerns were raised. Would this law be used to target human rights campaigners or endanger press freedoms? What do you think, Collin? You think that might be the case?
Sure.
Yep. In many ways, their fears have been realized when the UK government tried to seize a trove of documents linked by none other than Edward Snowden. In 2013, they used Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act, the same law that Rabbani was stopped under. Journalist Glenn Greenwald's husband, David Miranda, was stopped while transitioning through Heathrow Airport. In the process of assisting his husband's report, Miranda's electronic devices were confiscated and he was subject to interrogation for 9 hours. May he also rest in peace.
Right.
So, a 2016 ruling found that while the authorities' decision to detain Miranda was lawful, the use of Schedule 7 in his case was incompatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. In a statement acknowledging the potential chilling effect of Schedule 7 powers of journalism, Lord Dyson, the judge in the Court of Appeal, posted, if journalists and their sources can have no expectation of confidentiality, they may decide against providing information on sensitive matters of public interest. One document leaked by Snowden provides vital context for the experiences of Rabbani and Miranda at the hearts of the UK authorities. It describes a program called Phantom PARROT. We're back at it. So, which involves a policy of stopping people at the border under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act with the explicit purpose of downloading their data, Collin. All of their data, right? The document, initially reported on by Ryan Gallagher in The Intercept, unambiguously illuminates the importance of Schedule 7 to the program's legal framework. Under a section titled Legalities, it states the data is legally volunteered under Section 7 and Section 8 of TACT, the Terrorism Act, although the person will not be directly told their phone is downloaded. Okay? So you don't even know that they did this, right?
No.
So the downloads that the document refers to are facilitated by technologies known as mobile device forensic tools. These technologies allow police to extract a full copy of data from a mobile phone, all emails, texts, photos, location, app data, and more, which can then be programmatically searched. According to the leaked documents from GCHQ, the UK's largest intelligence agency, data obtained through Phantom PARROT is fed into a larger database called Lucky Strike, which at the time of its publication contained over 1 billion records. Sounds like the NSA to me. The UK government has not disclosed the number of media downloads it undertakes annually, but the use of Schedule 7 drew public outrage once again in April 2023, when it reported that a French publisher was arrested after refusing to hand over the passwords to his electronic devices. The foreign rights manager for French publishing House Editions La Fabrique was approached upon his arrival at St. Pancras International while en route to attend the London Book Fair. Among other things, he was questioned about his opinions of Emmanuel Macron and the COVID-19 pandemic. When he refused to hand over his passwords, he was arrested. The real purpose behind Schedule 7 is mass intelligence gathering. The charges against him have been dropped. In the meantime, however, the incident prompted a special report by the independent reviewer of terror legalization, Jonathan Hall. He stated the problem with exercising counterterrorism powers to investigate whether an individual is a peaceful protester or a violent protester is that it is using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. In the eyes of Rabbani, the sledgehammer is the point. The real purpose behind Schedule 7 is mass intelligence gathering, he says, and so long as that remains an objective to the state, I don't think we will see Schedule 7 powers being dismantled. Thoughts? Got anything?
I mean, we're not surprised at this, but it's just, yeah, it's just a blatant disregard of your personal rights.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that this is stealing. You're essentially stealing, and it's not, and you don't even have to use it for, like, I know for journalists in this case, but like anybody, you could steal like credit card, like if they really wanted to, like credit card, like anything regarding your identity could be taken away from you and you wouldn't even know it.
Yep.
So, and
we've seen some of our, journalist friends be detained in places like London recently. And like they weren't arrested. So that leads me to believe that you probably let your phone go, which I think is what a lot of them did, which means they downloaded your data, all your data.
And I was just saying that having lived in London, like that's Heathrow. Like,
Tower London
get
shit.
in any shit. Do not get in any shit in Heathrow. Like, don't try nothing in like any London airport, really. Because just as an aside, one of my trips to Africa, like we were leaving, we were heading back home. The night before when we were packing, we lost power. So we basically were packing in the dark.
Right.
A friend of mine in our group, she got some knife that she did not pack in her luggage. She actually packed it in her carry-on.
Yeah.
And she got stopped in London, when he scanned their bag, and they were practically ready to arrest her ass.
Right to jail, right
And,
away.
like, yeah, and I was basically like, being that I was the, has its citizenship in London, I was just kind of like, okay, what am I going to do to help this girl? Like, in the event, like, what am I going to do? Like, do I have to stay here with her, or do we all go ahead? And, like, fortunately, she ended up fine, but obviously they had to take away the knife. But, like, but point being, like, they could stop you for anything. And this is not necessarily to say this is just happening in London. This could happen anywhere. If the CIA or the powers that be chooses to, any suspect that they have can easily do this. So this is not good.
No, definitely not good.
So, but but I think it's just a matter of trying to be careful and try not. It's hard, especially with phones, because we have our whole lives in our phones at this point. But if have a backup of your shit somewhere, if at all possible. But even with that, that's kind of hard given how connected we are to our smartphones. That basically our whole lives are in there. So
yeah,
once they take that information, it's theirs.
It's theirs,
and there's not much you can do about it.
Right. You can prepare for it and make sure that that's not a problem. Do a factory reset on that phone before handing it. I mean, I don't know. Like that would be the smart move. But yeah, it's, spooky story. It's pretty spooky. Mainly because of the name.
Although, why is it called Phantom Parrot? Like, why that code name? Do you have an idea?
I mean, British make weird code names. What was the other one called? Lucky Strike?
Lucky Strike, yeah.
Phantom Parrot, probably because it is capable of parroting data. And it's
okay.
Ghostly.
Copy.
I don't know. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, copy that. Like a copy.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, but
or mimic, yeah.
We appreciate people being here. What's happening this week, Care Bear? This changed. But Thursday, 10:30. Nobody wants to work anymore. So go check that out with Indy and Snow Himbo. People seem to like that show. Angel changed to 12:30. Indy will confirm in chat for me. And Tara will be at I think he said 2:30. 3 o'clock Friday. Tara Reid, Politics of Survival. I'm not sure who the guest is yet. We're waiting on confirmation. So stay tuned. Yep. Stay tuned on our Twitter for that. You can get links to all our stuff down in the description below. But yeah, and then Boats 10 o'clock. Check that out if you missed it when we did it on Sunday. Saturday, not sure.
Crab said
Go ahead.
Crab said he is on for Politically Homeless with Chris on Monday. Right?
I hope.
And then Jesse should be on next Tuesday for American Contrition, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Should be good. But yeah, then
we'll
Sunday, how did we miss that? For another episode of that, I'll get you some fresh boats you can watch live. But yeah, that's about everything. I think we also have, if I can go here and then here, we got some merch. You can get yourself some nice stuff as we
Sorry,
run to JP.
shopping early. Holiday shopping early. Get that sheet.
Yep.
And all the things.
But otherwise, like, subscribe, become a member. You can get your name right down there. You'll see it. It's going by there. You can also find all our links at
Oh.
indienews.network. Get all the links to all the members of INN as well as the network channels. So yeah.
Once again, thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Shout out to JB for filming with us last night to stream tonight. So thank you, JB. Check out his Substack and everything else. As we mentioned, all of his information, and then the link to his Substack is in the description. Please do us a favor, support JB, share it out so more people are able to read it. As we said, just give him more encouragement to write more. So, but yeah, we love JB here. So we love the folks at RBN here. So yeah, support them, please.
Yes, please. Well, I think that's it. Oh,
that's it.
Always, kids. Labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye, have a great time.